Mr. David Paris, thank you for coming on the podcast today. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic, man. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited for our conversation today. You've had a pretty intense 18 months, I would say. And today we're going to talk about it. And, you know, sort of just to give a bit of a brief intro is that in, I believe it was March of 2020, you contracted COVID and you had a real rough go of it. And then, you know, a few months later, you know, thank God you came out on the other side, and you wrote a book, and it's a great read, and it's called A COVID Story, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. I'll put the link in the description, of course, but we're going to talk about it here today for sure. So how about we start at the beginning? What was going on when all that went down?
Yeah, man. New York City was the epicenter for United States, and it was rough. Everything closed down, but at the time there was no testing, and I thought being 48, I would be fine, no comorbidities. And I actually welcomed getting it. I thought if I got this disease, I'll have the immunity, and then nobody can have nothing on me. And that actually did not turn out the way. That's not the way that it came out. I got sick from my brother. He had it for a week. I got it right from him. There was sicker than I've ever been in my life, but not enough to go to the hospital. Back then, they said, if you're sick, don't go to the hospital. We don't have the room, and you're more likely to get it if not. A doctor told me, hey, look, you don't have it. He did he said, you're not short of breath. I know it was telecommunication back then, so I wasn't too worried. And then the 8th day, my sister called and said, hey, look, it's the second week. That's going to be the real trouble. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I went to get some breakfast, opened the door, and then realized, boy, I have no energy. And I went to sleep right in front of the fridge, and woke up an hour later and thought, maybe I need to do something. I had a friend of mine call me and say, hey, look, you need to go to the hospital. And before I couldn't say no because I was so short of breath. And I said, if I'm short of breath, that means I got to go. So I didn't actually think I had COVID, but I thought, let me go get it checked. I went into the hospital. The moment I walked in, I went from short of breath to couldn't breathe at all. Couldn't even say my name. Within seconds, they gave me oxygen. I was like, I've been without oxygen for a long time. Apparently, if you go below 90%, it's a big deal. I was at 70%.
Jesus.
So, and it's interesting. They told a lot of people to stay home, which was the right thing to do given the crisis. But there are a lot of people I know people who died who stayed at home. And so it was really a horrible time in New York City. And as other places are experiencing around the world, it's an overwhelming disease. Those first 5 or 6 days, I can't say I remember too much because I was hallucinating quite a lot. And then I went from, they said, hey, look, this guy is going from moderate to really, really bad. So they intubated me for a day, and things were not getting any better. They immediately put me on a machine called ECMO, where they take your take your bloods out and oxygenates it and does the work of the heart. And it's kind of like a big deal if you're an ECMO for open heart surgery is what they use it for usually, for 24 hours. Turned out I was on it for 32 days, which,
wow.
It was an intense experience.
So while you were on it, you were under what's it, a medically induced coma, right?
Yeah, medically induced coma. So they gave me drugs. They needed my body to rest. I had 2 pneumonias, I had the COVID pneumonia and a different one at the same time.
2?
They said I was sick. Yeah, 2. And I was, they said I was the sickest person in the hospital. They said my lungs were just basically cement, which was kind of annoying. I always wanted abs of steel, but I guess it moved up in the wrong way, And I was in real trouble. And it was funny because before that, being a school teacher, I'm a acrobatic dance champion, was America's Got Talent. I've had a good life, and I thought, all right, I'm in my late 40s, maybe this is it. And then, sure enough, they asked, a lot of people ask me, what's it like when you're in a coma? And some people I don't remember everything. I remember everything. I was dreaming the entire time, and You know how sometimes you remember like strong dreams that like stay with you for years.
Yeah.
It was very much like that, except and anybody who's been in this experience, if you read about it, they all talk about their dreams. It's like very, very clear that we're still there. And I remember my earliest dream was when I confronted death, and I thought, well, I've had a good life. And then that moment where I realized I was going to die, I was like, I take it back. I want to live. Like, I'll do anything. And there was a spirit that told me, hey, look, you're dying. I'm sorry. This is it. And I begged. And he said, look, if you're going to live, you're going to have to fight harder than you ever had in your life. And that was, I don't remember the thought after that, but I remember the intention. No, I'll do whatever it takes. I have to live.
Yeah, I mean, that drive to survive is incredibly powerful, right? And I mean, it's an amazing story that, anyone who goes into a coma, like, it's always fascinating to hear about people's experiences. And, some people have no memory or recollection of anything. And other people, the mind seems to stay sufficiently active to not only, be aware of what's going on, but also to create these dream scenarios that are happening for you. And, like when I was reading your book, like it felt the way you sort of told these stories and the way you're speaking about it now, it's like, it's almost as if it was more than a dream.
That's right.
That's right. Because in a dream, a lot of the times you kind of know it's a dream and you're like, the mind's just doing its thing. But I mean, this is something else, right? This is where you're confronting death, or you were rather, let's say. And, you were making choices now, right? And so you had this sense that like you had a choice, like, do you want to die or do you not want to die? And it's not just a matter of choosing, it's actually a matter of doing, right? Because the fight came afterwards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've been a fighter my whole life for sure. And definitely that fight, I've been told, they thought I was going to die. My heart stopped 4 times. They let my family know, look, he's not going to make it. And everybody else anywhere near as bad as me didn't make it. So definitely there's a lot of fight in me. I can't take credit from consciously, but I do know, I do have that passionate, really. There's so many things I want to do. I was just telling you, like earlier before we got on, like, I got these books to write still. I'm not done, and so yeah, I had that, and I do know that like the outside world influences your dreams, but it's not like I could tell you for sure. Anybody who's been through the experience, they say these dreams are different. They're spiritual. They're interpreting what's happening in your body, and there's also like interpreting. They played my favorite music is Latin dance. Like I love salsa, and my dance partner put salsa on 24/7, and I remember those dreams, man. I remember I was like dancing in all these wonderful places, and that's also a passion of mine. Like, I did well, but I'm not done. There's some moves I still want to get done, and that helped me. And it's interesting. They say like how much of you are really there, and they measure the brain waves. I'm telling you, man, we the patients there are there, and everything that's done makes the difference.
Yeah, measured or not. I mean, you have the story to tell it. Like,
definitely,
they could tell you that, oh no, you didn't have sufficient brain activity, but you could be like, okay, but I mean, so what exactly was this experience? Do you think I just made it up on the spot to impress you? Like, no, I mean, this was
even when I woke up,
life transforming.
Even when I woke up,
sorry, go ahead.
I saw the medical reports of what they were saying about me. They said he's not really conscious and all this other stuff. Man, I remember all those details. I really definitely, like the first week or so. Now, mind you, I was a little out there for sure, but I remember everything that was going on. So it's interesting. I mean, maybe my whole life, I've always, I wake up every time from a dream and I write it down. So part of me is like, I might have been better able to capture those moments than other people. But yeah, it's definitely, we're conscious.
What was your sense of time like? Was there any sense of time?
There's 2 things to say. One, it felt, like when you enter a dream and when you're in that dream world, time does not exist. It's like it's very much like that. And then when you wake up, I actually thought I was only out for 5 or 6 days. I was out for a month. So
it's a hell of an awakening.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I actually didn't believe it. For the longest, they had to convince me that, like, I'd been through a lot. I was like, I was just out a few days. There's no problem. And it was only when they showed me a calendar, I was like, oh, wow. I
Yeah,
really, I really, there's a lot more to it than I realized.
yeah.
So, in some way, time doesn't exist. And in other ways, there's so much that happens. It's hard to describe, but because you're dreaming 24/7 and you're really active and your consciousness is active and you're fighting for your life. I can remember, it's a sad, even a year later, I'm still sad about it, but I remember just raking leaves in a field for days at a time. So there's a tedium that you have to
Mm.
deal with, um, that yes, time doesn't exist, but in a different way, you know how much you had to struggle to get there. Like I remember one dream where I was suddenly on the side of a boat, and I was just about to die. I knew it if I let go, so I refused to let go. But unfortunately, that boat kept going, and nobody was capturing me. And obviously, that's another metaphor for my, fighting for my life. But and you get, I think the river Styx is some message from mythology, but like for sure, time takes forever, and it was not fun. Like it was really hard.
Yeah, no, I'm not jealous. I don't think it's, and I don't think anyone's listening being like, man, I want to do that. um, but so when you say that you were having these dreams and you were fighting for your life, right? What does that mean? So you said, like, you gave a good example, right? Like you were hanging on the side of a boat, such that
Yeah.
if you let go, you would die. So is that the kind of fight that you were going through, where you were having these scenarios, quote unquote scenarios, being played out?
I don't remember everything, but I
Sure.
remember some of it, and I remember, like, it's funny, my sister was telling me on FaceTime through the iPad while I was in the coma about like people who were donating money on my behalf. And I remember those moments because they were in my dreams. I was still establishing. I was donating after selling this business. I was donating all this money and wanting credit for it. When I woke up, I'm like, "Yo, man, check out my name on the donors planner," And then there's just like, "All right, whatever," you
Yeah.
know. Like, and so, not all the dreams were suffering. Some of them were taking in what's happening on the outside. One of my strongest dreams that stays really changed my life. My whole life, I've been searching for some level of greatness, whether it was being a writer or being a dancer, being a school teacher, like being the best at something. And I wasn't really happy unless I achieved something like that. And, I've gotten hundreds of standing ovations in my career, and those are momentarily good, but it doesn't satisfy my soul.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a higher level. And I know in my dream, it was weird. There's one moment I finally figured out, oh, I can get that magical. It was a diamond on the bottom of the world, but for me, that diamond meant achieving everything. And then it was weird because I knew that if I got that diamond, I'd have to run people over. And at that moment, I didn't care. I just wanted it. It was like this selfish thing that I guess is inside of me. And I just grabbed it and I took it to the top of the world. And I finally was just like ready to like to adore me with all my ambitions. I finally achieved it. And what happened actually was just the opposite. A spirit came, an Indian spirit with a sword. It sliced me in half,
Hmm.
quite shockingly, I know. And in that moment, it was explained to me. It wasn't like even words, it was just a feeling like, oh, I had thought that if I got this, I would be happy, but actually, this is nothing. And the spirit had me turn to my left, and I saw millions, an infinite amount of universes, multiverses that existed at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like clear, why was I so caught up on this little sense of, oh, if I got into Cirque du Soleil, or if I won America's Got Talent rather than being a finalist, like maybe then I would be happy. And I guess it's almost a little more than a year now later, that dream still stays with me. I'm clear that there is no happiness in destination. There's happiness. You can still seek. We still try to do things that make us happy, but the happiness is in now and how we get there. Like life might be slightly better, but who we are right now is what counts.
Hmm.
And it was one of a spiritual, like, so some of the dreams were tough, but that dream I think was a gift. I'm a spiritual believer, and that was a gift from God, like to change who I was. And that's a message I try to, share. Now I'm still, it's not the easiest to live it. It's
Yeah.
like it was clear, and it's still like it's like, all right, what's preventing me from being happy? Why am I doing destination, or am I just living with who I am right now and what I want to do and being my best self and valuing myself for who I am? It's a whole belief system that I grew up like most people, capitalist society. You have to do something to be happy, and grades and
Yeah.
all this other stuff and accomplishments, and we're all familiar with that. And it's easy to see. It's really hard to undo. But I got a sword through me. It was pretty clear.
I mean, that's a hell of a dream, right? And I mean, it's always fascinating to me to hear of people's stories of these like mystical transformational moments, and it happens to people differently. Like for you, it happened in this case in a dream, and for other people, it kind of happens just one day when they're walking on the street, and for other people, they do a bunch of drugs and come close to death, and I mean, it's not a recommended route, but like some people
It's
have
not
done it.
recommended, no.
um and also the interesting part is that there's also a bunch of people who are trying to do that, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of conflicting with the essence of the message, which is that trying's not going to get you there, right? You got to just be happy and find it right now with wherever you are in life, and find the beauty in the sort of the present moment, as it were,
It's so weird because it's like trying to find the present, the beauty in the present moment, but not trying to find it.
Yeah.
Like taking the trying out of it, the ambition, the desire. Like that's what I learned is so much of that trying is related to destination rather than experiencing. And then if you just say, "Oh, I'll just experience," for me, I'm a horrible meditator, man. I just go, yeah, I start thinking about other things, and so what does it mean to achieve that? I could say, in college, I was a religion major, and then I walked away because I got into Latin dance. I was like, I forget that religion stuff. But,
It's quite a switch.
yeah, the near death will throw you right back into religion real fast.
Yeah.
And for sure, the question of meaning in God and what does it mean to experience some serenity and the now. I've read that Power of Now book numerous times and never got never got it at all. Now I do. I was like, okay, there's future thinking, there's the past thinking, and to experience the present, it is an ambition, and that trying is ambition. It's releasing that. And for me, I never was a good meditator. I couldn't do it. But when I can name the thoughts, name them, and see them as, oh, there's the worry thought trying to get here, and peel off every illusion that comes off as they show up, then I can begin to experience a level of spirituality and connection that eluded me before. So
Yeah.
my version of that is peeling off things.
Yeah, and I mean, some would argue that that's meditation, right? Even if you don't call it that. I mean, or it's at least that's what people are trying to do when they meditate. I mean, that book, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, it's one of my all-time favorites. He's like my sort of online guru, as it were, I've never met
Yeah.
him, but his teachings have been hugely, profoundly transformational for me. But aside from that point, so what's your relationship now like with God, let's say, or with the spiritual side of things?
Yeah, I've had a roller coaster ride, man. I could say
Yeah.
it was a bit, with all the experiences of connection, my community really reaching out for me. The first experience was just wonderful joy and connection, and I associate a lot that you can experience God better when you feel connected to yourself and the world.
Of course, yeah.
Right, like that's like and I wonder to some degree whether God is connection, and that was great. Then I had some severe doubts, and it's kind of like in the book I describe the two wolves, and as doubt comes in, that's been a wrestler for me, because I'm like, you look at what evidence is there. And I've had to let go that there is no evidence. We're never going to know. The search for meaning. I read Viktor Frankl's book, The Search for Meaning, and I constantly was wrecked for months around whether there's meaning or not. And only through reconciling, I'm not going to know. We're just not capable of that. and there may not be, or there might. It's
Yeah.
like either way, we're not capable of doing that. That level of letting it go has helped a lot. And the best version of my current self is, yeah, just releasing all that ambition. And for me, I recognize that search for meaning was just a PTSD thing. It was like just my version, like, when you're near death and your body doesn't get a chance to process it, it's going to constantly go in overdrive saying, what is life? What is life? What is life? My body was thinking it was going to die all the time. It didn't get to process it. So my own connection happened through doing somatic work, and letting my body experience what it needs to experience, and to release that, to get a clearer sense of it's a bit odd. It's not the part of the brain that thinks rationally. It's like, and then how do you connect to that other part of the brain? And I'm not I don't have a roadmap, because my map is like 1,000 places.
Yeah.
This is quite a roller coaster. I hope I didn't make it too messy in describing that.
No,
But
it's been good.
it's been good, great.
Yeah.
It just saying that, like, it's been up and down, and I'm still in that search. Quite aware that sometimes a search is still anxiety and not a spiritual trait.
Of course, and the path is never straightforward as much as we would like it to be, and it's gonna throw you in all directions. And I mean, depending on how you want to phrase things, like some people would say all the doubt and all that kind of stuff is a test, or it's a challenge, or it's built to make you grow. And I mean, I don't know if I believe that necessarily, but
I don't know. Maybe.
maybe, as you say, ultimately it doesn't really matter, because what matters is what's happening now, right? But you brought up this point about PTSD that I have a quick question about. So, post-traumatic stress is another rough thing to deal with, right? Because it's very intrusive, it's very disarming and disconcerting, and it's very difficult to deal with. Not that it's impossible to handle, and with the right kind of care and support and things like that, you can make the necessary course corrections, or heal it, if you want to say it that way. I'm not sure if it's really ever gets healed, or if you can just learn to manage it better. Like, it's a process, right? But so, it's crazy, because you had this like really intense near-death experience, and then you think it's over, but it's not. Like, that's just part one.
I can't tell you how disappointing I was. Disappointing it was when they say PTSD comes like 3 to 6 months after the experience. And I remember when it started seeping in, about 3 months. And I suddenly didn't want to wake up, because you experience the sleep. And what I learned later is, like, when you wake up, it was very much re-experiencing the coma again. And then it's like, that was the first bit. And then around September, about 9 months ago, just started feeling immense pain. And it wasn't like, PTSD then is classically, it's just like people re-experiencing the suffering. I don't know, for me it wasn't like that, but I did experience immense just pain of the world, or pain inside. And the way I try to describe it to people is, I lost a little bit of this finger here, which they originally said it was going to be the whole finger, so to have most of it is still pretty good. And the tip of it withered over the course of 9 months, causing me a lot of agony. And I would say that agony is about 1/100th of the mental pain I've experienced.
Wow.
So, like, I try to, I know, like, if somebody's experienced tragedy, they know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, before this, I've never experienced that. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't expect other people to know. So I just try to give a metaphor to try to explain to people. But, like, it's been a rough road. It's much better now than it was a year ago. I've been doing lots of therapeutic work, and I could say one of my best moments is actually just sharing with other people who've experienced trauma. It wasn't my same, but they knew like you said, it's not something you just goes away, but it's something that's going to stay with you. But how you keep it company is something you can control, and that to me was immense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've never, thank God, been through anything like that, and so I can't relate on that level, but I would hate to, sort of imagine that's how you have to deal with things. But the problem is life throws shit at you that you don't expect or want, and then you got to figure it out, and you just get dealt a hand of cards, and sometimes it's a rough hand. But the interesting part about it is that, wisdom comes through suffering a lot of the time. And, just as an example, like after you having been through all of this has the potential to help and transform so many people's lives who are suffering similarly, or even if it's not the same situation, but just the idea of, I think that's sort of roughly called peer support, where it's like shared experience of something or other, and spreading the healing that goes with it, right? Both for yourself and for others.
For sure. I know that the book, there are COVID survivors who have read my book and who I don't know, who were totally moved and so thankful that, because it's a little bit in the news talking about the mental health struggles of people with COVID, and definitely there's brain fog, and definitely has experienced quite a bit of that. But the people who are intubated, a lot of them are going through PTSD, and PTSD is tricky. It's not a science for recovery yet. They have some idea, and things are a little bit better than they used to, but it's not. And the book is written for them. It's like I give the book away for free. Anybody just emails me. It's my pleasure to share.
That's amazing.
Share that. Yeah, I didn't like writing it. It was hard, like people always say, "Oh wow, it's such a," because it's funny when you read the book, you read it, right?
Yep.
It's a funny book, so I keep it lighthearted, I keep it uplifting, so it's interesting and it's super easy to read, and I did that on purpose. But the actual writing of it, boy, I had to re-experience everything again. It was like not easy. But I did it to share with other people, both people who were experienced it, and then especially I have a lot of friends who don't know anybody who's been affected by COVID. I have friends who know multiple family members who died, but I also know people who don't, and they said, wow, the book gave me real insight. And ideally, it's a pro-vaccination story. It's like, look, don't mess with this. Yeah.
No, it's true, and I'm sure it was rough, because reading it, like I could tell that like you really went deep when you wrote it, right? You didn't write the surface level. It wasn't just like a brief account of here are the facts and that's the end of the story, right? And you take the reader on a journey, as a good author does, right? You take the reader on the journey with you, not exactly with you, but
I would say with me. I'm trying to give all of myself to. When you read the book, you actually feel like you were with me and you know me, right? And that's a compliment, because I really try to put myself out there.
Yeah.
It was like, for those people who don't know the book, it's also an oral history. So there are lots of other voices. There's the doctors, there are the nurses, there are the aides, there are the physical therapists, and I try to include a lot of their voice, so it gives the fullest picture possible of what the experience is.
Yeah. Was it cathartic for you at all, writing it?
The book?
Yeah.
No, it's terrible. It was horrible. It was like, no, it's funny. It's like, there's this thing about trauma that like, it's not helpful to experience too much of what you went through all at once. There's this word titration of going really, really slow.
Yeah.
But I knew I had to do it, and I knew I had to do it as soon as possible. I actually originally had a ghostwriter write it, and I had her do all the interviews with all the people, and I said, I shared my stories. I was like, write this up. And then when I saw it, and she gave me a copy, it was completely, I couldn't use anything. It was horrible. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. And I was just like, oh boy, it looks like I'm the one who needs to do this. Yeah. So then I just spent the next few months just totally dedicated. It's all right, has to be me.
Yeah, well, listen, it came through and it was worth it. So well done to you. But Thank you. So to continue along your story, so after your 32-day coma situation, it's not a situation, but after being in a coma for 32 days, right? Which is a hell of a long time to be in a coma. I mean, you know, you can't even really imagine that happening to you, where, I mean, you just can't. But so during that time, right, your body was fighting COVID and these 2 pneumonias that you had, and a host of other things, right? Like was it gangrene that got your finger or something?
Yeah, I had also. I mean, it's not the bigger thing, but yeah, I had gangrene in all my fingers and toes, and they said I was going to lose a number of fingers and toes, and but again, that's nothing compared to my heart stopping.
Yeah, it's, you know, better to survive and have a few less fingers than
I was not upset, you know,
to be dead with all your fingers. Like, how's that helping?
When I woke up, they really struggled about telling me about missing fingers, and I was just like, whatever, you know, I'm alive. I really didn't care. To this day, I don't care. I show people it's a nice talking.
Yeah, I mean, you can hardly even see it. Like, it's just the top bit, like the nail, maybe, for anyone who's just listening. You know.
They said that was a sign that God was with me. The guy who does the hand surgeries, he said he's never seen anything like that. So to some degree, I don't know whether it's that will to live. Constantly, they told me all these fingers were being chopped, but the gangrene kept receding, and it was something you normally don't see. But you know, COVID's a disease. I can't tell you how many times. I was told, it's a new disease. We don't know what's going to happen. And like, how quickly am I going to get back my dancing career? Like, the same answer. We don't know, you know? And so,
very frustrating.
Yeah, I hated that. I was like, it was a bit odd, you know, but I'm an optimist. I'm always an optimist, almost to a fault. So, you know, when I woke up, I told my dance partner, look, we're going to go do a world tour. You know, not knowing the world had fallen apart, and not knowing that I couldn't stand yet.
Right. That was right. That was the other part, right? Was that when you came out, you were, I mean, essentially, like, couldn't move.
I couldn't move. I couldn't twist. I couldn't lift most of my limbs. My right arm a little tiny bit. Couldn't press the remote for a month to change the channel.
Now, what was that from?
Just the muscles atrophied. Some of it was muscle atrophy, and then other parts were just nerve damage from being in the same position for so long. And it was, and when you, it's not the best situation.
So it wasn't the COVID, like, directly that did that to you. That was the effect of being in a coma for a month.
Don't know. Not sure.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess the doctors probably had the similar kind of answer, being like, well, could be something, could be this, could be that.
I don't mean to pass along I don't know. But, you know, if you ask me the circulation, COVID affects circulation, right? That's part of the reason we had gangrene. Or I had gangrene. So, like, yeah, it's quite possible that it was a contributing factor getting worse. Like, apparently nobody, if you don't get bed sores if you're in a coma for a month. Mine was the very worst. There were grapefruits on the side of on my butt. So I got 2 new huge holes. And if people who don't like me thought I already had a big hole, forget it. It was like this one flew it away. And they're like, wow, we've never seen this before. And it was having that kind of effect on. And I wasn't the only one. They said mine was particularly bad, and it's potentially because I have a really big butt. But they said the whole floor they're called stage 4, but like when the holes go straight to your bone and just start spreading out to the side. Yeah, it was bad. I don't want to give you the image. The book is funny, audience.
No.
Right. I'm not giving the best examples of humor.
No. I appreciate it. It's the
but
the
I am
truth.
sharing it
right?
was bad. It was bad.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's the truth, and it's fine to share that part of the story. You know, it's not like it diminishes the other parts of it. But yeah, I mean, okay, so you woke up or were woken up out of this coma, right? You spent how long just in the hospital bed before you went to rehab?
Another month I was in the ICU, and I could say for me, the first week was rough. Like, you know, they say you wake up in isolation. I'm divorced. It was not the worst. I got more attention there than I do otherwise. But when I was in the first week, when you're in that in between the dream world and this world, that dream world I'd lived for so long, I didn't want to live in this world. This one didn't seem real. The other world is what seemed real, and mentally struggling, and still fighting for my life. I could say the depth of pain and loneliness was nothing I've ever experienced before. And I given my mother a hard time, who's elderly and struggling, around always asking attention for me. And I now feel like, oh man, I just, when you don't experience it, you don't know. And then once I experienced that pain, I was like, oh, I need to do more for my mother. And for that matter, everybody. I was like, my God, I've been really entirely selfish for a very long time. And when you wake up and realize that, well, I got myself cut in half. So I was like, well, that's that's not really worth doing anymore. And then like you when you wake up, you feel like what's important is love, and just that's when I said, wow, I want to give up this personal ambition, what changed my life to make it about other people, as much as I can.
Wow, that's huge, right? And particularly because it doesn't have to go that way. People go through suffering and just become more angry and more resentful, and don't take that change for the good or to help people or to embrace love in the world. They go the other way, and it just makes them worse. And so
I remember this Hell's Angel rider was in a motorcycle accident, and he was in a coma for 6 months. And when he woke up, he took another, I think, a few more months of rehab until he was finally okay. And I think his girlfriend said, if I remember correctly, his girlfriend said, "So did you learn something from this?" And he learned, "Yeah, I'm invincible."
Yeah. That's the other side of the coin, right? You can come out, be like, nothing can kill me,
Yeah,
Fuck
Trump
you,
was like
COVID.
that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
He was pretty bad, and then said, "Oh, look at me, I'm Superman."
Yeah. No, but I mean, you took the sort of sage approach, right? Not intentionally necessarily.
It wasn't intentional.
Yeah, no, that's just how it happened, right?
Yeah, it was not something I thought about, but something that, part of it was I woke up and had to really think about significance, because I lived the last 7 or 8 years not living up to my goals and not being satisfied. And I recognized, wow, it's because I was searching for something and not appreciating everything that was in front of me. And it was just so obvious when you wake up, that it was a big shift. And then it was funny, a month after that, when I first learned, oh, I'm not going to be able to do a world tour in a month. Probably, really, the first moment they had me stand up, and my legs suddenly, they were not mine. There was like, it was the weirdest feeling, not being able to walk. I was like, oh, this is going to take a while. And I got depressed because I had this thought of, maybe I'm not so lucky after all. Maybe I'm actually unlucky. My brother wasn't sick. What was the chances I was going to get sick? At the time, I didn't think it was affecting younger people. And that was the second spiritual message I got. I finally spent a week depressed, really upset. I'm a positive person in general. Suddenly people were saying, wow, you're really going through a lot now. What's going on? And I was like, yo, this sucks. Like, this is the worst. I can't move. I can barely twist. Yeah. I can't feed myself. It was not pleasant. And it was funny, as I finally remembered this very famous story called The Two Wolves, where this elder, the Native American elder, he was talking to his grandson. And when he talks to his grandson, he says to him, we constantly have two wolves inside of us, all clamoring for our attention. They're very, very hungry. One is a bad wolf, very angry, very mean, very jealous, very spiteful. And the other wolf is a good wolf, very loving, has a lot of gratitude, forgives, is very caring. And the grandson asks, says, well, which wolf is going to win? And the the elder says, the one you feed. And what was weird is, until that moment, I never knew what that story meant. And I was just like, oh, I get it. I understand this now. We have these two wolves in us all the time. And I started feeding the one that said I was not lucky. I was actually unlucky. Look at my situation. Up until then, nothing changed. The only thing that changed is my perspective. And suddenly I was depressed and stuck in depression. And I recognized it's not that I don't need to notice that there's a hungry wolf inside of me, that an angry wolf saying, hey, I'm angry. That one still gets recognized, but I don't ignore the one that's also good, that says, hey, what are some of the things that are important, like my love, the people I love. And then I had to shift to the things I do love to do, the people I like to connect to, the things that I want to be able to be passionate about. And from that day forward to this day, 1 year later, I live my life every day like that. Not, it's funny, sometimes you want to trust your thoughts, but for me, I don't always trust them. If I'm feeling negative, I'm going to hear that's one perspective, that's one wolf. That's not the whole wolf. It pretends it's the whole wolf, but it's not,
Yeah.
you know? And then what does it take to listen to both wolves or multiple wolves?
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, I think that's an amazing story, and it fits perfectly for, describing this phenomenon of, cognitive dissonance. Of there's so many ways that you can approach something, and oftentimes your mind will tell you that this is the right way, or this is the only way, or this is how it is, and that's that. And if it's negative, then it's gonna suck, because then your whole view of things is just exactly through that. And yeah, the more you feed it, the more it wants, the hungrier the wolf gets, right? And so it's about being able to see that that's actually taking place inside of you, and then having, well, one, the strength, but more importantly, the courage to be able to recognize that your thoughts aren't always true, and that there are other ways that you could look at it. And even if you don't really feel anything else, just that acknowledgement that there is other ways will ease the grip, so to speak, right? And allow you to just take that step back and say, okay, well, let me look at what's actually good right now, right? And for you, it's like, I'm alive and I have wonderful people who love me, and I'm getting excellent care to treat this, really terrible thing that's happened. And they're really good things, and they're hard to notice a lot of the time when you're in a lot of pain, or whether it's physical or emotional or mental. Like, the world goes gray or black, and you just see that, right? There's like a veil that you can't look through, but actually you can. And one of the things that in the book that sort of like really resonated with me on this point was how when you were in the rehab center to get walking and moving again, how you sort of started dancing as soon as you could, right? And that's feeding the good wolf, right? Because there's
That's
so
right.
much going for you that would suggest that you should just lie there and not do this, or that you can't do it, or that it's dangerous, or that any number of reasons about why you feel sorry for yourself or whatever it is. But something pushed through that, and something drove you to start feeding that good wolf again, and to start dancing, and to listening to music again, and phoning people, and just connecting with the providers around you. And I think that that's huge, and that must have helped tremendously in your recovery, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The first moment, for me, again, Latin music, it was the Fania All Stars from 60s and 70s. That music sings to my soul. They even just thinking of it now, I'm suddenly like, I get it's something, and everybody has that. And so it's funny, when I first stood, I was just like, oh no, this is a bad situation. And I think it was the physical occupational therapist who started putting on my favorite music. And then the second time I stood up, I actually grabbed her immediately, and she thought I was dancing with her. I was just really trying to stay up, but like we were dancing a little bit, like just
Yeah.
side to side. And I could say, yeah, the joy I had in that moment. That time, I have 100 other stories just like that. That adding the difficulty situation of something I enjoyed, that made a big difference for me.
And it's huge, right, to be able to take those small moments as they come, because things do look really bad, and
Yeah.
it's really hard to take on and really embrace the small moments of victory. And it helps to have these wonderful therapists that are there to support you and encourage you and motivate you when things suck or whatever, and just encourage every step that you take, just standing up. I mean, it's huge for, if you can't support yourself, to go from that to then standing by yourself. That's a big milestone, even though you might say, is it really? I mean, I just stood up, everyone stands up, like blah
It's
blah.
amazing.
But that's not how it really is, right? Because you were just
Yeah, it
thrown
isn't.
into this world.
Yeah, it was important to me to just, I hope it came across how much I love these people who
Yeah.
supported me. And I didn't know they existed. I'd never had this, I'd never been hospitalized overnight. And all of a sudden, there are all these miracle workers who, by the way, I had still had COVID. They were, and they weren't in the vaccine back then, yet they were determined every day to get me moving a little step. And they said, yeah, it would be like a centimeter more each day, but they made it seem like the biggest thing in the world. And earlier we talked about like undoing the ambition to appreciate the moment. I really got a taste of that. My dance partner one day, I was sitting down upset that I could really just only move my arm, and she said, "Great, you're gonna dance for the rest of your life beautifully with that arm." And at first my thought was like, she has no idea what the hell. But then I did it. I moved up. I like gave a gesture upwards like this, and I thought, that's actually pretty cool. And it was that, again, beginning to still acknowledging the negative wolf, but the positive wolf saying, I can be happy in this moment. And the only reason, really, to be honest, the only reason I wanted to do the grander things like throw people up in the air was to, get a standing ovation and have people adore me. And
Yeah.
and I can have that same level of joy right now. It's
Yeah.
like I don't need that destination to get there. And it was such a. I put that part in the book as I hope is as an example, because I constantly am challenged that way to say how much of my thinking is I need to do something to be happy rather than, I talk a lot about my dance partner's son, who's one, and he loves putting his finger between two cushions, and you would think,
What do you mean?
what is that? Sorry, so if you have two cushions on a couch and he like puts his hand in between the two cushions,
Okay.
and for him, he just loves that feeling. And I was just like, yeah, it's for the father, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I did the same thing, and I'd be like, whoop, like this, and then we do it together. And I was just like, oh my God, I totally forgot. I love putting my hand between two cushions. I totally forgot. And like it's that level. Is a amazing to be around a young person during this time to remember, as he's enjoying walking, I'm enjoying walking. Like I forgot, it's tremendous. Imagine like
Yeah.
the first year of your life, you can't walk, and all of a sudden you can. You're like, yo, this is great. And how much, and so it's been absolutely a bit to undo the ambitions, but then also to undo what we've taken for granted, what I've taken for granted. And I'm on that path. I can't say I'm there, but it is something in my thinking all the time to appreciate a hello from somebody. I appreciate light now, sunlight,
Yeah.
and it's been a big change. And to be honest, the only thing that ever made me happy before was a standing ovation, and I'd get those like once in a while, on a good month, maybe a few of them, and in a bad one, I could go a year without one, and like that to me was a very poor quality of living, despite having all the opportunities to be happy every single day. And I missed it. And this year has been the best year I've had in a really long time. Maybe since I've been one.
Yeah. And that's really saying something, considering what it's on the back of, right? And that it hasn't been easy, and it's been
No.
arguably one of the most difficult years of your life, but also one of the
Worst.
best, right?
This has definitely been by far the hardest year of my life. I've never experienced anything like this. In general, I've been a pretty happy person, having a pretty good life. And now, my therapist, the first session, he told me, it looks like you're gonna have to learn how to deal with pain. I was like, yeah, man, I'm not used to that.
Yeah.
And a year later, I could say, yeah, most of my day is very good. But it's been a long journey.
Yeah, but it's amazing, right? And hugely inspiring, because, even people who aren't going through COVID or something like that, just to know that despite enormous challenge and difficulty in life, you can find joy, and you
That's
can
it.
live, wonderfully and peacefully, and not necessarily 100% of the time, right? Like that's what life's about and life will push you to make sure that that's actually what's happening, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of like the testing thing that we were saying earlier is,
Yeah.
and the better you get at it, the more difficult your tests become sometimes. And why that is, I don't know. God knows, we could say.
know.
But, you sort of just need to look around and you can see that is the case for most people. And then you approach these challenges with, this attitude of gratitude and of joy and of, I mean, I said gratitude already, but like that's, and it's wonderful because it doesn't have to come that way, right? And it's really
Yeah, you don't have to have near death to have
no.
these same lessons.
Yeah, don't go try crazy shit just to see if it works for you,
No.
because it might not, and
Right.
you also might die, and
Yes.
then who wins? um, but it is, and I actually really enjoyed that part of the book where you were comparing yourself to the 1-year-old, right? Where it's like just rediscovering life for the first time, or for you for the second time, I suppose. But it was more, I guess, a remembering of the joy that there is in life that kids naturally have because they don't have advanced, mental games that they play with themselves, and they haven't been conditioned to just accept things as normal and take it for granted and things like that. Like, it's all new, and so life is vibrant and it's alive and it's exciting, and you can see it like when kids walk on the street, like they like to jump on the sidewalks and walk
That's
and
right.
balance and things like that, and they're
That's
just
exactly right.
yeah,
Yes.
and they're just
Exactly.
learning about their bodies, right, and how to be and act in the world. And it's, if you take the time to just look, it's wonderful to see, because it's just pure joy, and there's no thought and there's no trying. They're not trying to impress anyone or do anything or achieve anything. They're just being and being free. And something like what's happened to you can clearly reignite that in you, right? Particularly when it's all taken away, right? And you're left with essentially nothing. Couldn't move by yourself. You couldn't eat by yourself. You couldn't do anything, right? You were on the edge of death for quite a while. And then you had to start reliving your life again, right? One step at a time, one movement at a time. I mean, that's why when, it makes sense to me when you moved your arm in a sort of the dancey fashion, or whatever you had said much more eloquently than I, that was a huge moment of joy for you, because you got to experience something that you took for granted and was then taken away from you. And then you were like, oh, actually, this is, magical. And you don't, the good thing, which I suppose is why you're sharing your story, is to tell people that you don't have to go through that. You can, if you just take the time to notice and just feel things and just be in the world, like, you can have that magical experience of joy and appreciate life and be grateful for everything, even the bad things sometimes. I mean, the weird situation for you, I mean, I don't know if it's weird for you, but it's kind of like there is this weird paradox of like you had to go through this rough patch to come out even better and wiser on the other side, right? And to have, like you said, one of the best years of your life, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that it's not necessarily that you would ask for that to happen to you or to anyone else, but since it did happen, it's been tremendously, powerful and transformational for you, right? And that's great. And, it's a really wonderful story. And I mean, so, just to sort of like wrap things up, like so you spent how long in treatment? I mean, in rehab, sorry.
Yeah, I was in a rehab hospital for 30 days, after the ICU for 30 days, after the coma for 30 days. So 88 days altogether.
Good God, that's a long
The
time.
It was a long time. And the moment I got home, I was still needing at home. I can tell you how crazy I was, even though I could I was able to walk 10. It's a funny story. I was able to walk like 10 steps by the time I got home, and that was like, no, sorry. That wasn't 10 steps. It was 10 minutes, 10 minutes. I was able to walk 10 minutes, so I could walk the store and back. I was just able to mostly take care of myself. So I thought to myself, oh, I'll get on my electric bike and I don't have to pedal very much. I'll get some more exercise. And, I was careful. I got on carefully. I rode carefully. And I thought to myself, this is no problem. What I didn't think about was not how to get on and stay on, was how to get off. So the moment I stepped onto it shows you how dumb I am at times. But at the moment I stopped at a light, I was like, oh yeah, let me. I still couldn't move my arm more than a few inches, but I thought it was fine because I could get it on the handlebar. And once I was on the handlebar, it'd be fine. But then I realized, oh, my left side is still numb. That means I can't balance. So, I'm gonna fall to the right. So I fall to the right, and I roll right in the middle of the road.
Jesus.
And yeah, I would have died any other time, but because of the pandemic, there are no cars there.
Right.
Despite it being like Flatbush Avenue, it's like a major street in Brooklyn, you know. And I thought that was like, it's like, oh, that wouldn't end well if I did all that and then died in a dumb traffic accident. Yeah. So I put the bike in the shop and I said, that's it.
Just
I'm not touching you for months.
Yeah.
And let me take it. Let me see if I can actually learn these spiritual lessons. So I share that story to say I've learned a lot, but I'm also pretty dumb still.
Yeah. And listen, that's just how it goes, right? And so what would happen to you? Just like you say, you could only walk for 10 minutes. What does that mean? What would happen afterwards? You'd just be exhausted.
Yeah, the level of exhaustion, I don't know for other people, but actually I should say, I'm from the people I saw who had COVID back a year ago, I was recovering way faster than them. And there are other people who could only move, I could move most of my limbs. Some people could only move one. And even after a month of being in the hospital. So some couldn't stand. So for me, my recovery was super fast. Like 2 months after that, I saw the doctors and they were amazed at, but it's partly because I have an acrobatic dance career. So my body was in decent shape. But, I still, during that time, after 10 minutes, my heart would start burning. I start getting dizzy. And when you do it in the rehab center, they measure your oxygen, they measure your heart rate, so you can see when it drops below 90%. And so, but I didn't need I can feel it in my body. Oh, I can't go any further. So after 10 minutes, I would just stop. So a lot of walks were 10 minutes walking and 1 hour waiting. 10 minutes walking, 1 hour waiting. It's a long journey. Like right now, I'm able to start doing acrobatics again. A few months ago,
nice.
I started doing it again. Yeah, it's pretty great. My left arm still has some nerve damage. I still have some numbness in my body. But I'm able to do like 60, 70% of what I used to. It's not too bad.
And what's the prognosis like long term? Should
you know what the doctors say, right?
Hey,
you know what the doctors always say, right?
Know. We'll see.
They don't. They really don't.
Right.
I get
diseases.
That all the time. Right?
Yeah. Fair
New
enough,
disease.
man.
So, yeah, I could say that it's been a journey of slowly going this way, and we don't know, but so far so good.
So far so good, and I wish you ongoing health, and thank you for sharing your story and for writing this book, and for surviving and making it through. And I'm really glad that it's you've come out on the other side and continue living to tell the story and to share your experience with people. It's been wonderful, and so thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Really my pleasure. Thank you for giving this platform, and yeah, thank you.
Cool. And I'll put links to your website and your contact info in the description for people who are interested, and I would highly recommend this book. So yeah, but until next time, take care.